The Parkinson's podcast is brought to you by the Davis-Phinney Foundation and brings you the stories, wisdom, and expertise of people living with Parkinson's, care partners, and Parkinson's professionals. Welcome, everyone, to the Parkinson's podcast. My name is Sia Euros, and I'm your host from the Davis-Phinney Foundation. And today, I'm glad to be joined by our guest, Leo Sarmiento, who turned his Parkinson's diagnosis into a catalyst for change. After years of working in insurance, Leo made the bold move to focus full-time on property maintenance and management, something he had started to do previously, in order to stay more active and to take control of his health. So welcome, Leo. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey with Parkinson's and how this all kind of got started?
Yeah, the journey has been an interesting one. As you mentioned, I was in the insurance business prior to diagnosis. And I guess long story short, it was a little bit of a toxic environment, but I was not happy doing what I was doing. I actually studied exercise science in school. I have a degree in exercise science. But long story short, the last probably 2 or 3 years of working with this company, I started struggling pretty significantly with anxiety and depression. And I had no idea of having Parkinson's or leading towards Parkinson's. I was just, I was struggling with anxiety and depression. And there were times that I found myself sobbing at my office. I didn't even know why. Sometimes I knew why. And then sometimes I had no idea why. Anyhow, fast forward, my wife and I decided we needed to exit this business, this industry. And it was during that time, during the exit kind of period, that I discovered that I had Parkinson's. I had been experiencing some sensations, we'll call them, in my left foot. I was a pretty avid cyclist, and I started noticing on my bike that when I was pedaling, I just felt like I was losing power in my left leg. It wasn't pain, it wasn't anything like that. I just felt like I couldn't push as hard as my right leg. Went to the doctor, they did a couple tests, they sent me to physical therapy, couldn't figure out what it was. Went back 6 months later because it was still there. They told me to come back if nothing had gotten better. Got some MRIs done, still didn't find anything. Basically 18 months later is when I found out that I had Parkinson's, and that was due to a DAT scan that a neurologist finally decided to do on me. So that's how I found out. That was May of 2022.
And so at that point, had you already switched careers, or was it kind of like a thing that was in process, or how did that all kind of unfold?
Yeah, it was, it all unfolded all at the same time, really. As I was exiting the business, I found out I had Parkinson's. For many years prior, I had been doing renovations on homes, basically, and rental properties. So when this all happened, it was the catalyst to ending my relationship with insurance and moving forward and doing the things that I enjoyed.
What would you say were the main changes in the way that you were approaching your life and what you were doing, maybe prior to diagnosis, and as you were kind of changing, your focus after you got diagnosed?
It all started happening so quickly. I started learning about Parkinson's, and one of the first things I learned was how activity and exercise was a really positive thing. And looking back, my role as a sales manager with this company, I was mainly behind a desk, or I was sitting and not doing anything too active. So I kind of felt like, and this is, by the way, with the help of DPF and the ambassador that I first met, Rich Wildow, which he just recently passed away, but he was extremely helpful for me. And the conversation about living well with Parkinson's started at that point. I felt like the fact that I had Parkinson's, I didn't want to just sit back and wait to see what was going to happen to me. So instead, I'm actually doing the real estate now full time. And part of it is because it kept me active, or it keeps me active. Do renovation projects, and I actually have a handyman type business. I realize that when I'm working, I actually sometimes forget that I have Parkinson's. It's oftentimes that I work a full day, and there's no doubt that at the end of the day, I'm tired, but I feel like most people would be tired at the end of the day regardless. So as I'm doing it, I feel like I benefit from activities and work that actually keep me moving. the more seated I am or the more sedentary I am, the more I feel like I have Parkinson's. I'm realistic that this might not always be the case. I understand that as the Parkinson's progresses, some of the things that I may be doing now may not be possible in the future. However, I felt like while I still can, and that while I still can might be 5 years or might be 15 years, because I don't know that, I feel I've been kind of re-energized to do the things that I enjoy. And the limitations that I have now really are minimal. Like I said, I realize that's most likely going to change over time, but I am living a good life right now, better than I was before Parkinson's. There's no doubt.
Can you tell me more about reaching out to Rich and the ambassador program and just like the kind of conversations that you had and yeah, Rich did pass recently, and I had the honor of meeting him and speaking to him a few times, and he's a very inspirational human being. But I was curious if you could say more about your relationship with him and how that all happened.
Yeah, Rich is an amazing person. I can't say enough about him. I'm try to say this without choking up too much. He was the first person I met from the Davis Phinney Foundation. We had coffee, and he was just very, very critical for my transition into being a person with Parkinson's. What he did best was just sit there and listen to me. I was struggling with the reality of what was happening, and he wasn't trying to provide solutions for anything or anything like that. He was just a very genuine person who was genuinely interested and curious in me and my life, and he spent time listening to me, and likewise, I spent time listening to him and learning about him too. And it was just a good relationship. And very quickly, I found out that there was a wonderful community out there of people with Parkinson's, and that this was not going to be the type of journey I was going to have to do by myself. I think he was inspirational for me to realize that life was not ending. I think that was my initial shock of finding out I had Parkinson's, that I was basically dying. Yeah. Until I did the research, I literally thought I was dying and I was going to end up in a wheelchair in the next few months. And he was integral to helping me understand that that was just not the case. So with his support, I felt like I could make choices based on the fact that most people with Parkinson's live with Parkinson's for a fairly long time. And though limitations may present themselves as time passes, it doesn't mean that you can't live a good life. And I believe that wholeheartedly.
So what are the kinds of other activities that you're doing for your business? So it's property management and it's maintenance, and do you do construction, that kind of thing?
Yeah, we do small renovation projects. So nothing huge. We're not building homes by any means, but yeah, from a handyman position, it's kind of like as little as changing light bulbs and all the way to replacing walls and drywall and painting and flooring. And some of those things really was originally our properties that we did on our own properties in order to essentially save money and not pay somebody else to do it. But through that, we figure out the skills, and now we do that as a business as well. We also happen to own a car wash, a self-service car wash as well. So that kind of keeps us busy.
I mean, so you run everything that has to do with the car wash, all the machinery, all of that?
Yeah. This is self-service, so it's simpler than what you might imagine with a tunnel, automatic tunnel. However, it never fails that every time we go, something does break, and so there's always something to do. But I don't mean to sound cheesy, but every time I'm there and I'm fixing something, like I'm just grateful that I'm able to do that. And honestly, I'm grateful that my life is leading in this path of enjoying myself, doing the things that I enjoy doing, rather than being in a position where I can't stand my job just to get a paycheck. So it's really pretty amazing how life has evolved these last 2.5 years. I want to be realistic again that I won't be able to do this forever. But even if I didn't have Parkinson's, I wouldn't be able to do this forever. So it's the kind of thing that I'm enjoying the path. Something else that I'm currently doing is I'm in school for a master's in mental health counseling. This was a path that I took during those last 2 or 3 years where I was struggling with anxiety and depression. I started seeing a counselor, and it was incredibly helpful. I don't I would have survived it. However, at the time I don't think I would have believed I could have survived it without the support of a counselor. And it just opened up my eyes to that profession, to how valuable that profession can be for somebody in a time of their where they need it most. So that was another thing that happened after Parkinson's. I mean, that was a direct result of receiving the Parkinson's diagnosis, is that I figured at some point I would no longer be able to do the activities that I'm doing with the real estate and the renovations and the car wash. So I started looking into becoming a counselor. Again, out of respect I have for the profession, I felt like I now had something to share with others. And luckily, it's a program that I'm in now. I'm about halfway done. It's a 3-year program, and should be graduating May of 2026. I guess originally I went into it thinking it was a backup plan, kind of, sort of. But I envision my days, my weeks being a mixture of all the things that I enjoy, and that's going to be counseling as well.
Can you say more about what's really helped you to navigate the mental health struggles that you've had? And you mentioned counseling and exercise and things like that, but I was wondering if you could say more about what has helped you.
Yeah, combination of things. First and foremost, I have a strong faith in Christ, and I couldn't do without him. I feel like he's led me to the things that I'm doing now, and also led me to some of the things I've done in the past that are going to help me moving forward. One of those things being the exercise science degree that I have. But as you mentioned, between counseling and between exercise, those two things are huge. Add prayer to that and daily meditation, and that's been incredibly. It's been the kind of thing that just I look forward to it every day. I don't spend hours meditating and praying. However, I do spend a significant amount of time each morning, call it 10 to 15 minutes every single day. And it's a great way to start the day. I feel like it sets the tone for the rest of the day. Typically, I enjoy exercising in the middle of the day, not in the mornings, especially in the winter, just because it's cold in the garage. But a combination of all those things, as well as people who support me, my family, my friends. Rich was one of those people. I just been blessed with the environment that I'm in now versus what I may have been in the past. I can't emphasize enough that I am the happiest I've ever been. Now, there's no doubt about that.
So, what advice would you offer to others living with Parkinson's? Maybe especially if they're newly diagnosed.
First and foremost, do not lose hope. I'm saying this from experience that early on, I didn't even lose hope. I just had no hope very early on. But luckily, I realized that this was something that was not a terminal disease, and in fact, in a weird way, I'm kind of fascinated by Parkinson's. It's such an interesting disease. It's just so different for every single person with Parkinson's. I find it pretty incredible that dopamine has such an effect on so many things in our bodies. So if there's ways of increasing dopamine naturally, which is through exercise, through meditation, through proper rest, through proper nutrition, it's kind of like sometimes I feel like I'm running a research on myself. I try to keep very careful track of what I'm doing and the results that come out of that. Just to give you an example, I know that if I skip 3 days of exercise in a row, that I'm going to feel it. I feel it in my joints. I feel it in my hips. My lower legs get tighter and my arms swing less than they already swing. I just know that the 3 days is the marker. I can miss one, I can miss two, but if I go three, I start kind of heading downhill. On the bright side, even if I miss 3 days or 4 days or 5 days, I'll kind of bounce back to where I was before pretty quick after only 2 days of exercise. I know that about myself now. So I would urge anybody, especially in these early stages, to, as much as you're able, to keep an open mind and realize that your bodies are capable of so much more than you realize. And I think Parkinson's is one of well, maybe a little bit of an odd way to do this. It's actually an incredible way to gain awareness of your body and gain awareness of your mental health at the same time. If you can become curious about how your body reacts to whether it be exercise or any type of therapy that can be helpful, you can actually become an expert on your body, even if you don't have experience in the past of exercising regularly or any of those things. You can start now and actually find yourself in better health and better fitness than you did prior to having Parkinson's. There's no doubt about that.
So are there particular exercise routines or types of exercise that help you the most that you've discovered?
Yeah, for me, I know most of the research out there is on cardiovascular exercise, and there's no doubt that's helpful. It's helpful for me. It's helpful for everybody, whether it's a bike or boxing or dance or whatever it may be. For me, though, I actually benefit more from resistance training. So lifting weights, pushing weights. In my mind, what's worked the most is, instead of the maybe like the typical thing that people might imagine in a gym where you do a set of some exercise and then rest and then do another set a couple minutes later. The way I do my exercise, they're typically anywhere from 20 to 25 minutes in length. I don't get any rest. So I kind of combine resistance training with cardiovascular. I feel myself continually getting stronger. And for the most part, I would say dynamic type of exercises rather than machines is what I choose, probably mainly out of convenience because I like to exercise in my garage, so I have some equipment there. But it's just general movements rather than just doing bicep curls, for instance. It's more about pulling and pushing and squatting, hinging at the hips, just general movements that we're going to do each day, and keeping the weights fairly heavy, at least heavy for me, right? So that you're pushing or pulling weights where you're getting close to failure anywhere from 6 to 10 repetitions. So I'm doing it for the goal of becoming stronger and staying flexible. Yet at the same time, my heart rate's up for 25 minutes straight. So it's the benefits of being on a bike or on a run or on a rowing machine at the same time. Again, one of the main things is tracking it so that you're constantly progressing forward, even if it's just a little bit more weight or just one more rep or a little bit more time, just trying to constantly be pushing your body to make it feel like it needs to improve. You have to stimulate it to make it want to improve. So
awesome. Thank you so much. Is there anything that you wish I'd asked or anything else you'd like to share with our audience?
Nothing I wish you'd ask. If anything, I'll just say, I think mental health counseling and finding a counselor that you can trust is just so incredibly valuable. If you haven't used a counselor in the past, this diagnosis of Parkinson's can be the catalyst to you building a relationship with somebody who can help you with that aspect of health. Mental health is just such an important thing, and it has such an impact on our whole life that it's just as important, I believe, as the exercise is for somebody with Parkinson's, just as important as medications and just as important as just learning about the disease itself.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your journey, and just wish you the best of luck with everything.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Parkinson's Podcast. For more information about the Davis-Phinney Foundation and to learn about educational offerings and community events for people affected by Parkinson's, please visit davisphinneyfoundation.org or dpf.org. This content includes information, insights, and opinions from our Parkinson's community. The views expressed are those of individual participants and do not constitute medical advice. This content is not intended to substitute for the guidance, advice, or recommendations of your personal healthcare providers.